Are adopted folks more likely to be against choice? Oh, interesting question. Well, that's among the things that we're going to talk to Annie Wu Henry about. She's a communication specialist for progressive campaigns and organizations. She's a digital organizer for PA Stands Up. Annie, welcome.
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So look, it's a starting point for a conversation. You were adopted, and apparently some people assume that means that you would be against choice. I don't know why that assumption is. I mean, I could figure out why that assumption exists, but is that true?
No, and I think that, the solution that adoption is for an unwanted pregnancy is just it just doesn't make sense to me as an argument, because it really isn't. It's not an alternative to abortion because it doesn't stop you from being pregnant. It could be potentially a solution if you don't want to be a parent and you do want to carry a pregnancy to term, but it is not a solution if you do not want to give birth. It is not a solution if you don't want to be pregnant. And so I really don't understand why that is just thrown around as like, well, you can just put your child up for adoption. And it's also like the adoptee community, you're kind of speaking for us, and you probably don't know that much about the topic. So why are you doing that?
Well, it's because they're right-wingers. They'll talk about things that they don't know all the time. It's kind of what they do for a living. But I love that distinction you made. I hadn't heard that before. I mean, adoption is about whether you want to parent. It isn't about whether you want to be pregnant. That's a different question, right? And so, Annie, yeah, but for example, my grandmother considered having an abortion, very, very seriously considered and that turned out to be my dad. And she chose not to at the end, and so that's why we're here. But that was her choice. I think a lot of times people miss the fact that people can choose to do what they want, and it doesn't mean that everybody's going to terminate their pregnancy, right?
Right, and I think that, the question that I get posed, which I, again, don't really understand why, is like, well, you wouldn't be here, like you're saying about your father, you wouldn't be here if your mother had an abortion. And there's a lot of reasons why any of us wouldn't be here. That's like, if your parents were tired that night, if they had used a form of contraception, like if something small had been different, like you probably wouldn't be here either. And so I don't understand why you're trying to bring that into the conversation, this random hypothetical that really is not an argument.
Yeah, you know what? Another great point, because you wouldn't be here applies so is weird in a lot of ways. First of all, okay, maybe my grandmother would have had a different kid later, and then they would have had a different kid, and that guy might be better than me. And now he's not here. Are you guys happy? Now he's not here because she didn't have the abortion. So, and to your point, I mean, we just talked about this on another episode, just like a couple of days ago. Depending on when that act reaches a conclusion, even a second difference, and it's a different person. So like, are we going around going, hey dad, why did you arrive at the conclusion at that time instead of a different time?
Right.
If you had, I wouldn't be here. That's such a silly argument. Okay.
Yeah, I don't understand that argument in general. Nobody brings it up to anyone else. Like, just the fact that I was adopted, okay. And you could really use that argument for anything in life. Like, if you get in a car, like you could get in an accident at any point. Like, you can change the theoretical future for any situation, but all it is, like, it's just hypotheticals. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not an argument.
I'm picturing people having super awkward conversations with their parents. Okay. Or people yelling at my dad going, you know what? If you'd lasted longer, he wouldn't be here. Okay, anyways, it got weird. Anyways, so Annie, you did at least one video that I saw about abortion, and you talked about a couple of different ways that it affects people, and I wanted to just give you the floor on that a little bit, and have you talk about that reaction that you had.
Yeah, I think that obviously after the decision from the Supreme Court came out, there were a lot of really justified emotions from everyone of being mad at the justices, at being mad at legislators, at being mad at a lot of different things, or being upset at all of these things, which again, all of those reactions are very, very valid. But I really want to make sure, and in the work that I do, I always try to remember like what it's all about, and what this issue and what this decision is about the people, and the people that need to have this access to healthcare. And it is so many different types of people for so many different reasons, all of them being equally valid. Like no matter what reason you seek abortion care or you seek reproductive health care, like they're all valid, and it's about the people, and it's about those are the people that are going to be hurt by this decision. And just remembering that while we're also, trying to keep pressure on legislators and do all of these other things in protest, like remembering the humans behind it that are like really going to be impacted. And so I thought that thread, which was written by an abortion care clinic worker, like back in 2021, that I read on Twitter and had gotten permission to share, and all of the names were changed for safety purposes, but all the stories were real. I thought that it was just so powerful because it talks about, a trans man that is going through body dysmorphia because of a pregnancy that he needs to terminate. It talks about, young children who are pregnant and need to deal with that. It talks about people who were in really bad situations with their partners, or with people who weren't their partners. And then it also just talks about people who simply like don't want to be pregnant. And again, all of those things are okay. And all of those types of people are going to be impacted by this decision and are going to be harmed by it, which is just why the fight is so important.
Yeah, so as a young progressive activist, what do you think about how the Democratic Party has reacted to the ruling?
I mean, I think that we needed to be more prepared. I think there are certain legislators, there's like Elizabeth Warren and AOC who come to mind, that have come forth and given very pragmatic plans of what we can be doing now. And with the leak that came out in, early May, whoever leaked that out, again, we don't know who or why, but they gave us some time to prepare for this, as well as the fact that, the Republican Party has been saying that this was one of their major goals for decades, like before I was even around. And so we shouldn't be surprised. And so I think with one of the frustrations I've had with just the party and how things have been handled is our lack of preparedness for it. And when the decision came out, kind of the shock that there seemed to be around it. And while yes, you definitely could never probably fully prepare yourself, even if you were aware that this was going to happen, but we could have had like plans and things in order, to also from our leadership to make the civilians in this country feel better from their leaders. And I think that was something that was lacking.
How do you respond to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris saying, "Well, just vote more"? And so if you vote for Democrats more, then we'll have enough votes to be able to make a difference.
I mean, I understand the concept of voting, and I think that it's important. As someone who's worked on campaigns, like voting is important. It's the reason why, we have Ketanji Brown Jackson in the court, and the decision wasn't a little bit worse. It is the reason why then with the Senate that she was able to be confirmed, and with Joe Biden, she was able to be nominated. However, voting is not the only answer. And I think that needs to be made clear as well. The election for the midterms is in November, and there are people that need care and need support from now until then. And so voting, I think, is something that, yes, is a talking point, but it should not be the only talking point. We also need to be taking action. We also need to be putting pressure on our current electeds to do what they can now. Again, like I was saying, like there have been plans been put forward by people like AOC and Elizabeth Warren that we can be enacting and we can be fighting for. And so I think saying just vote is like very simplistic and also just very annoying to people because they have been voting, and it didn't help in certain cases because of some of the flaws in our system. But
yep.
I think that they need to make sure that when they're messaging that they let people know that yes, vote, but that's not the only thing you should be doing. And we understand that that's not the only thing that you should be doing or that we should be doing. And that part of the messaging is left off.
Yeah, well, you made a great point. We already voted for you. Why don't you do something? So all right, you're a young progressive. I'm curious, do you have any right-wing or Republican friends?
Friends, not so much, which it's interesting because I'm from a very rural conservative area. And I have a lot of my best friends that I grew up with that I've known since we were too young to know anything about politics. And we all grew up and have similar views, and we were talking about that. And, I like to think that I surround myself with people who care about others, who try to listen to experts, who try to listen to facts, who try to think critically, who again care about more than just themselves, who aren't just driven by things like money. And so I guess it makes sense then that the people that I surround myself with are progressive, or that align with my political, or I'd say like human rights views. But I do have, a lot of conservative family members, as well as, being from a conservative rural town, I know a lot of people who are very different in their political or, again, like human rights beliefs than myself.
All right, one last quick question. You did a really fun lip syncing video of Anna's I don't care about your religion rant. She's my co-host on the Young Turks. What inspired you to do that?
I think, the religious argument is just like, feels so nonsensical to me. Like, first of all, the separation of church and state. But second of all, I was raised in, which I think would surprise people, I was raised in a fairly religious household. My parents still go to church every Sunday and are pretty involved. They aren't like the evangelical right. They're pretty wholesome and just good people and practice what the Bible, because again, I grew up in a pretty religious household. So I've read the Bible, I've memorized parts of the Bible, I know a lot about it, which is why the religious argument is just so infuriating, because the Bible doesn't talk about the life starting at conception. The Bible pretty much says that you should be looking out for others, caring for other people, helping people, especially those who are worse off than you. A lot of socialism in the Bible. And so the religion argument really just hits a nerve for me, because it just doesn't make sense, especially imposing that upon other people who don't practice your religion. And again, the arguments that they use are just very much weaponizing religion and not even necessarily going off of what Christianity says. So I've always loved that rant that she does. I think that it's, very powerful, gets to the point, and it's gone viral, I know, many times. And so, I appreciate you guys and Anna using the platforms like 2IT to share that message. And so I wanted to share it with the people in my life, as well as be like, there's more of us that believe this. It's not just one person. And I think that's important, because in these times it can feel very helpless sometimes, but it's not hopeless, and we're not alone. There's so many people that are in this fight. And so I wanted to show here's another woman speaking on this. I really resonate with the message, and I'm gonna say it too.
Yeah, no, I love it. But I will do a quick fact check. Jesus wasn't just a socialist, he was an absolute communist. He said, give away all of your possessions to the poor. So It doesn't get, I mean, Karl Marx would blush at what Jesus said. And of course, the Bible is pro-abortion. Numbers 5:11 through 31. The priest performs the abortion, and God is the one that executes it. Everything you've ever heard about the Bible is wrong, especially if you heard it from a right winger. All right, Annie Wu Henry, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.